You're listening to the Black to Business Podcast, an educational podcast providing Black entrepreneurs with the tools and resources to start and grow their businesses. We chat with vetted Black entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and business owners as they provide tips and resources to help take your business to the next level. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall. Hey fam, it's a new month and Black to Business has some news to share with you. We are going on a tour. That's right, we'll be outside this summer and fall all because of you. We've heard what you had to say and we've read what you wanted, and now we are here to deliver. We're bringing back our panel series, Black Men Who Lead, and this year's theme is the DNA of a Black Businessman. We're exploring the anatomy of Black men in business and what characteristics lead to a thriving leader in 2023 and beyond. To learn more about where and when, follow us on all social media accounts and fill out the link in the show notes entitled Black Men Who Lead Update List. Now back into the episode. Welcome back to the Black to Business Podcast. So excited to have you here. This week's episode is another solo episode. It's actually a short episode, but I'm going to share with you some insights on how to find and embrace your uniqueness as an entrepreneur and find what makes you special and what makes people gravitate towards you, because I know that this is something that a lot of people struggle with. And I wanted to also discuss this topic because recently I was at a workshop and it was about podcasting, and someone asked me, how did I decide what I wanted my podcast to focus on and if I was worried about entering a saturated market? And the answer to the latter question is that I did think about the fact that there are a lot of people doing this. I don't know if they're going to listen to me. I don't know if I know enough, but I only thought about that for a second. And I heard someone recently say that those are those selfish thoughts. Once you have a purpose, once you have a vision laid on your heart, sometimes the imposter syndrome can sink in and it can say, what makes me worthy? But that's us thinking about ourselves. We really have to think about how we're going to best serve those people that need the solution that we have the vision for. So I only thought about that for a second. And also the reason why is because, and it also has certainly proven to be true over time, is that no matter how saturated a market may be, because of your uniqueness, there is still room for you. And what I've come to realize is that oftentimes we think people know more than they do, when actually they're waiting on you to provide them with a solution. They like the way that you teach it. They like the way that you provide the service. They like your uniqueness. And this is so true that we think people know more than they do, because some of the topics that I've covered on the Black to Business podcast, there are a lot of people when it comes to business, they'll come to me for advice. And I'm like, oh, I actually have a podcast episode about that, because those are some of the things that they're struggling with. And it's awesome to hear how they say, I like how you broke that down. So we really sometimes think people know more than they do. So you have something you need to add. You have something of value. And I remember one of my old coaches used to tell me, you know B. So somebody else, they only know A. So they're trying to figure out B. So you can teach them B. So I give that advice to you. But before I go off on a tangent, I know you're wondering exactly how do you identify your unique selling point, and then you use that to build a strong business and brand that stands out. I also want to be clear about the fact that I am aware that as Black entrepreneurs, we do deal with a range of challenges, from overcoming systemic racism to overcoming the negative stereotypes and biases that may exist in our industries. And as a Black entrepreneur, I know you probably can relate to the fact that sometimes it feels like we're under a microscope. So you have to worry about all of these things. And in addition to that, you're still figuring out how to navigate your industry, a crowded industry, and it is a lot. Trust me, I get it. However, what I want you to take away from today's conversation is that by identifying your unique selling points and building a strong brand and business around these selling points, you can stand out in your field, you can increase your impact, and you can generate more revenue. And this is what it's all about. You have to control what you can control. And I also want you to know that these stereotypes and biases, they don't define you. You have unique qualities and strengths that make you stand out from the crowd. now let's dive in. So first, let's get into understanding your uniqueness. And I want to start by discussing some of the challenges that you might face in identifying your unique selling points. As a new or first generation entrepreneurs, you might not have the same level of experience or resources as your peers. So this can make it difficult for you to actually pinpoint your strength and understand what actually sets me apart. So the way that you overcome this, it's important you have to take a step back and you reflect on what are your past successes. Think about what you've accomplished so far and the skills and qualities that helped you get there. So you got to dig deep within yourself. Look at some of those certificates that you've earned. I remember once I was helping my mom clean out her filing cabinet and she had so many certificates she had forgotten and they were at some of her past jobs. So look there to gain that information or the inspiration as to what am I really good at? What am I getting recognized about? What are people coming to me for? So I like to say, what success have you gotten for yourself or for someone else? Also, you can get feedback from trusted colleagues or mentors to gain an outside perspective on what your strengths are. Because oftentimes there are people who are in your corner, they're cheering you on for a particular thing. So think about what that thing is, and you might be surprised by the qualities or the strengths that they identify that you hadn't even considered. I know for me, initially, I just started with interviewing guests who was having success in business. So I had to eventually realize, okay, I'm turning this into a business, and people started to come to me for advice on business or advice on who do you know as a Black entrepreneur that does this. And so that is what inspired me to create the directory. So look at what are people asking you for constantly. That's something that is unique about you, and they go to you for that. They might know a million other people that do that thing, especially with online and social media, but for some reason they like the way that you do it. They like what you have to say, and they also trust you. Another strategy is that you want to look for patterns in your work or accomplishments. And this could include like identifying those recurring themes or values that you bring to your projects, or recognizing the consistent feedback from those clients or those customers. So this is especially good for those of you who are still working a job or a 9-to-5. What are you excelling at work? So I'm sure you're looking to transition. And for a lot of people, you might not necessarily start out by doing that exact thing in your business or your side hustle that you want to do, but it will give you that leverage. It will give you that runway to be able to eventually do the thing that you want to do. So for a lot of people, they start out with consulting, and that might not ultimately be what they want to end up doing, but it is something that allows them to learn more about what their clients want. It also allows them to get revenue or additional income. So those are the things you want to think about, especially if you're working a 9-to-5. People asking you at work, okay, you excelled at this, but then also sometimes people asking you outside of work, okay, can you help me with this? I know you do this at your 9-to-5. So that might be a perfect segue for going into maybe consulting. And ultimately, the key to understanding your uniqueness is you have to embrace it fully. So as a Black entrepreneur, you bring a wealth of perspective, experiences, and cultural insights to your work. And by owning and showcasing these unique qualities, you can set yourself apart in your industry and make a lasting impact. Like, everybody is inspired by Black culture. Everybody wants to know the Black perspective. So you could be that person in your industry. If you're at your job, you're the person that's speaking up. We do need people at the table. So once you've identified your uniqueness, it's time to build your brand and showcase what you have to offer to the world. Now, it's important to note that your brand is not just your logo, it's not just your website, but it's actually the way that you present yourself to the world and the values that you represent. So it's what sets you apart from your competitors and what makes you recognizable to your audience. And there have been a ton of guests in the past on the Black to Business podcast who have spoken on branding. There are some experts who've spoken on branding. And one of the things you'll notice that they say is it doesn't start with the logo or the website. A lot of it is that groundwork. So it's not just your logo or website. It's much more than that. So when it comes to building a strong brand, you want to start by first developing a clear message that communicates what your unique selling points and value you offer to your customers or your clients. So we worked on that previously. So now it's time to communicate that. And this could include like crafting that mission statement, that tagline, or that elevator pitch that captures what the essence of your brand is. And storytelling, I think, is very key here. In this process, you want to think about what's your story for starting your business. People relate or resonate with people. People buy into people. So that is a part of your brand, is that storytelling aspect of it. And then after you have that, you want to consider what that visual identity is. And this includes things like your logo, your color palette, and your typography. So it's important to choose those visual elements that are memorable, they're cohesive, and they're reflective of your brand's values and personality. Like everything should make sense. Like when they see your brand, they see, okay, this is related to Monique. This looks like Black to Business. This looks like something Black to Business would say. When it also comes to building your brand, you want to utilize social media and your network to showcase your brand and connect it with that audience. So this can include sharing your story once you build that story on social media, attending some industry events, or building some relationships with some influencers or other entrepreneurs. This is really, really key. I think this is where social media comes into play. And then you also want to remember that building a strong brand is going to take some time, consistency, and dedication. And it's not an overnight process, but once you focus on your unique selling points and you consistently showcase them through that branding, you stand out in your industry. And then that is what allows you to increase your impact. And finally, when it comes to finding and embracing your uniqueness, knowing how to overcome challenges is key. So when I do programs in the schools with the youth, we always do these goal setting exercises. And usually I have them map out their top 3 goals for the school year. And once they have these goals, I'll ask them, plan out how you're actually going to accomplish these goals. And then once they do that, I'll say, now, what are some of the obstacles that you might face when you're trying to reach your goals? And how are you going to overcome those challenges? And usually some of the obstacles are that those things that they can't control, like their living situations or those constant responsibilities. I say, despite all of these things, you can't not focus on reaching your goals. And the same for you. You have to prepare as much as you can and try to work around these obstacles. So I say all this to say that as a Black entrepreneur, you're going to face a range of challenges. Imposter syndrome, like I talked about before, to the lack of support or the lack of resources. And especially as a new entrepreneur, these are things that you're going to face. It's important to acknowledge these challenges, and then you have to develop those strategies to actually overcome them. Because despite all of these things, you still have to reach that goal. You still have to figure out, what's my unique thing? What am I going to sell? How am I going to build my brand? And what are some of the obstacles that I'm going to face on this? But remember, that unique thing is why people gravitate towards you, so you can't let them down. So despite these obstacles, you still have to push forward. So one of the ways that you can do this is seek some mentorship and some support systems. And this could be, you can join some industry groups or some networks, or you can work with a business coach or a mentor, or actually connecting with entrepreneurs who also share your experiences. There's nothing like having people who can relate to what you're going through and tell and share with you, how did I overcome this? Or maybe you're struggling with something and they can help you, but then also maybe they're struggling with something that you overcame and know how to do. So getting in those actual support groups is going to be very key. And another strategy is that you want to focus on your strengths and accomplishments. So it's easy to get caught up in the fact that there are challenges and obstacles that you're going to face. But by focusing on what you've actually achieved so far and these unique qualities that you bring to your work, you can stay motivated, you can stay inspired. And this goes back to, once you're so clear on your uniqueness, once you're so clear on the value that you add, you want to show up for those people who believe in you and invest in you. Don't get sidetracked by the challenges. They're going to be there, but come up with an actual plan. Okay, how am I going to work around these things? And then finally, don't forget to practice self-care. Business is hard work, so it's important for you to prioritize your mental health and your physical health along the way. And I say all of this to say that embracing your uniqueness as a Black entrepreneur is not going to be an easy journey, but it's going to be worth it. You want to show up for those people. So by identifying your unique value, your unique selling points, and then once you've built that strong brand, you're going to stand out in your industry and you're going to increase your impact and you're going to increase your revenue. So I hope that this has been helpful for you and that you have more clarity now. You have more clarity on how can you find your unique value, and you have more clarity on how you can overcome those obstacles that you might face in your journey. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode. And I am so glad that you have chosen Black to Business to be a part of your entrepreneurial journey. I will see you back here next week, same time, same place.